Okay, let's begin. Hello, welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together and talk about issues that affect us, right? From political to cultural, silly to serious. We're playing our favorite game right now, and that is When Will Kidology Show Up? That's always fun. He's aware of this. He's consented to this. She'll be here hopefully soon. But I wanted to start on time and say hi to all of you and just kind of give you an idea of how this is going to go or how I plan it to go. Whether this actually happens or not, we'll find out, right? But we'll see, right? So the plan is I wanted to get Kidology on to talk a little bit about some of the Twitter takes she's made of late. Namely the kind of Coomer post she did where she rated all the specs appeal of the various streamers. I was flattered. A lot of people weren't. That was interesting. It was interesting. I want to talk to her about it. Also, her recent video on Oxfam and also her takes on trans issues in general. I wanted to have a sit down with her and kind of talk about that as well. So we're going to do that for the first bit. And then as we go, we will open it up and let callers, that's you, gang, call in and talk to her about the various issues, right, that you have, maybe, with Kidology. And I wanted to keep it light, keep it fun, right? But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes, okay? First, again, first order of business is actually getting her here. We're working on it, gang. We're working on it. Cross our fingers, right, that she'll be here. Otherwise, right, so we are doing this on 3 platforms today. You can view me today on YouTube or on Kick or on Twitch. We are streaming to all 3 platforms at the same time. So if there's drops in quality or something, please let me know, okay? Please let me know, and we will try to make adjustments, right? This is kind of like a stress test almost about how my computer will handle, right? The the load here. So Krieger says on Kick, did you hear the news about XQC? Are we talking about the $100 million deal he got with Kick? I heard about that, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm very envious. $100 million? Okay, I don't understand it. I legit don't understand it. I understand that not everything is for everyone, and that people like different things, and I've come to peace with the fact that my tastes are much different in many cases from the tastes of the general public. But $100 million to watch that boring motherfucker? What is going on? Who watches this guy? Why? I don't know. I tried. I just there's nothing there. I don't know. But then again, I'm not the target audience for these things. I don't watch streamers unless they're talking about me or unless I can actually be involved in the discussion, as in come on in to the discussion. Or if they're my friend, right? If they're someone I'm friendly with or looking to be friends with or am friends with, then I'll watch them. But otherwise, no, I just don't do that. So $100 million. Yo, I could use some of that money, bros and chicas. Okay, I could use $100 million. Hell, I could use 1% of that money. Damn. A 0.1% of that money would be useful. Oh, great. Part of the deal is doing like 40 hours of gambling a week or some shit. Look, for $100 million, I would look, $100 million. I would, my principles have a price, and $100 million. I will advocate for whatever you want for $100 million. Okay, I'm just being honest with you. I'm being straight up. Okay. Krieger saying it's 70 million base with 30 million incentives, according to look, even just that base, right? Even the base, only 70 million, right? Like that's wild to me. It's astounding. Okay. Yeah. If you set up, anything north of 7 figures, okay? If you set a suitcase with 1 million or up, the amount of stuff that I will do for you, like my principles, shrink. Now, obviously, there are certain things that I won't do for any amount of money, okay? But they're very limited. Killing someone, I wouldn't do that for any amount of money, right? Torturing someone, wouldn't do that. But yo, you want me to advocate for some far right shit for $100 million? Hit me up, baby. I'll do that. Why not? I'm just saying. Okay, I'll take that deal any day. Yo, if Daily Wire out there needs a shill for $100 million, man, look, that's a question. Okay, I get $100 million to shill for right-wing policies, but I donate half of that, $50 million, to left-wing politicians. Am I doing more harm? Which one is, where is the level of harm here that's being done, right? Like, where does the gravity lie in this? Is my rhetoric that I'm being paid for more effective? Or is the $50 million I'm donating to left-wing causes more effective? I guess it would depend on how big I got, right? If I'm speaking before audiences of 100 million, okay, maybe, right? Maybe that's a little more effective. But if I'm speaking before an audience of like, let's say Destiny's size of like, you know, what's he got? 600,000 subscribers. Let's say 1 million people watch him, right? On the regs. Yeah, I think the 50 million's a lot more gravities on that side, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Hard to measure. How's my audio, gang? Can you guys hear me just fine? How's that coming through? Let me check to see if Kidology is on her way. I'm sorry. Excuse the lateness of this. Hopefully she gets here. Okay. Dang. I don't know. She just moved. We're going to give her some grace, okay? We're going to give her some grace. She just moved. Maybe she's still settling in, right? She's still setting up. I saw her tweeting earlier. She replied to some of my tweets earlier. I know she's here, right? Or at least she's got internet. So I don't know, right? I don't know. Hopefully hopefully she gets here soon and we can actually have this conversation. But oh, we got some great things coming up next week. Let's talk about that while we're waiting, okay? So you guys see this this Uber driver thing recently? So I'll read you the text here. Let me get it. Let me get it up, gang. Give me a second. Ugh. Okay, so this has been sent to Uber employees, contractors, to be clear. They're not employees, they're contractors, which is a very important distinction. We have detected that you have rejected a disproportionate percentage of trip requests heading to certain neighborhoods that are largely comprised of low-income residents, minority residents, and or other residents who may belong to certain disadvantaged communities. As a reminder, rejecting requests solely to avoid particular neighborhoods due to the characteristics of the people or businesses that are located in those areas is prohibited under state law and violates Uber's community guidelines. If we continue to detect similar patterns of trip rejections, your account may be permanently deactivated. Based or cringe, guy? Based or cringe? Oh, she's here! Hold on, jump backstage, Kidology. Give me a sec, Kidology. Oh, please let this work. Without, here, I'll invite. She's in my server. I don't know. It's at the top of the server. Kidology, if you're listening, if you're at the top of the server, there's a voice chat called Backstage. You click on that, and I'll drag you in, and we'll talk. Hopefully, she gets that. But she just messaged me on Discord. There's improvement on Discord, not Twitter. I'm just happy that, you know, we've made that kind of progress, okay? I'm just happy that we've made that kind of progress. Yo, I think if anything, it's just you can reach anyone and to see how far we've come, how far Kidology has come on the tech issues, right? It gives me hope that anyone can change, right? That anyone can be better and become a better tech user and things like that. Now, will she figure out how to get into my voice chat? That is the question that we're going to help her with right now, okay? Yeah. Do better. Was that her catchphrase? No, we're dragging her. We like Kidology here. We're Kidology fans. Let's make sure she didn't go into even veterans sometimes go into one of the other chats that we have going on. So let's see. She didn't jump in one of those bottom ones. No, I don't see her there. And she still hasn't gotten backstage, but she's alive. She's here. She's around. So apologies, my audience. She'll be here soon. She stopped replying. Okay. If you I guess for this moment, if you want to support the stream, okay, you can do so several ways. You can hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. If you're on Twitch, throw some subs my way. Throw some bits. Hit that follow button. If you're on Kick, it's not monetized quite yet, but we will be monetizing it soon. Hopefully after this stream. I just need watch hours, right? Basically. And then yeah. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Let me turn you down just a smidge. You're a little loud. No, it's fine. It's on my end. I had you up very, very loud. I'm not sure why, but we did. But hello, welcome.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, much better now that you're here. Do we get to see you today? Can we turn on the
yes,
camera?
Yes. I'm so sorry. I have literally been moving for the past 10 hours by train, so I'm a bit disjointed. And so yes, how do I do this again?
There should be a button on the bottom. Says it looks like a camera. It should say.
Okay, I've got it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Ah, hooray! We have not only an
Hello.
audible connection, but a visual connection. How are you?
Yes. I'm very a bit. It's been a very long few days. I have been moving to the other side of the English country, so it's been a lot. It's been a lot. This is the first time I've sat down in like the past 10 hours. So
Oh wow.
yes. So yeah. But I made sure that I got a little bit of a setup here. So this square that we're in looks adequate. You do not want to see the rest.
Look, I got a screen for a reason. Okay, right? So
wise,
I understand
very wise indeed.
I understand it. You got to curate your space and the presentation. It's very important, right?
Indeed.
Presentation is actually kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today, but I don't want to get ahead of myself too much. Okay.
Right.
And
okay.
First of all, I'm glad, right, that you were able to make it. I appreciate you for coming on my show and talking to me.
Anything for you.
Appreciate it. Especially, I know that you're moving. I know you got some stuff, and I hope, right, that has gone well, or at least as well as could be expected, right? I'm hoping that you're settling in good, and I know that, right, you said this is the first time you've got to sit down in a while. So yeah, kick up your feet, relax a little bit. No pressure. No, hopefully it won't be too tense here, and we'll kind of get this conversation going.
Oh, thank you. Oh yeah.
Do we want to start with the tweet or the video first? I'll let you decide.
The video.
The video, yes. I saw your Oxfam video. I watched it.
Oh right. Okay, the video. Okay. And
the tweet is the Coomer tweet, the one where you rated all of us for our specs appeal. So it's up to you which one you want to start with, but I have thoughts on both.
Oh, I'm not sure. Thank you for giving me a choice, but I'm not sure which one is worse at this point. Probably the specs is worse. So we'll leave the worst for last. So let's do Oxfam.
So there is a few concepts within that video that you talked about that I wanted to kind of pick your brain on, if I may.
Mhm.
This idea of ideology replacing people. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that in the video? So you said that ideologies are kind of, at least this is a message I got from the video, is that ideologies are taking the place of individual people and individual thoughts and ideas. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yes. I think we're in a time now where everything has gone virtual. So everybody's communicating more so with people online than anything else. And I think that that's sort of outpast our own evolutionary well-being. And I think in that we sort of have to dehumanize people in order to just stay sane or think that we're sort of in control of our fate in the virtual space. And I think ideology serves a very important role in that. I think it sort of, firstly, sort of makes everything that is very complex and beyond us seem a lot more reasonable and simple. Everything seems a lot more understandable when you sort of just squish everything into the confines of an ideology and just make it look the way that you want it to look. And I think it also sort of gives people a kind of religious, spiritual avenue on which to sort of perch and look at the world from. And so I think too many of us, especially young people, particularly young people, are relying heavily on ideology in order to connect with a more globalized world, with an increasingly complex world. And I think we do a disservice to ourselves in doing that. But I do sort of, I get it. But I do think that is an issue, especially when it comes to our personal relationships and personal connections with people.
No, I understand what you're getting at here, and I think that there is a danger. To your point, I think there is a danger of becoming lost in the sauce, so to speak, where we stop seeing people as people and start seeing them as statistics. However, right, it is how the wider systems work, right? Regardless of whether we like it or not, in order to make decisions that affect millions of people, we can't take individuals into account too much. There has to be some sort of general decision making, general policy, general kind of things done, because the edge cases, the niche cases, they're edge and niche. We need to deal with the average, the normal, the I guess the baseline case, right? The foundationals.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. I do understand that. I think an important distinction that I make that I think is very specific to our time now is that young people, I think for the first time, like ever, like this is just my speculation, but young people for the first time sort of ever in recorded history are now putting ideology before family and before their intimate relationships. I sort of understand when this is done.
Wait, ever in recorded history, you think that this didn't happen back in the Middle Ages and back in where they would literally lead their wives and children to go?
No, I'm talking. I'm talking in the modern context of things. I'm talking like modern, like sort of in modern recorded history, like in terms of data recorded now about modern politics and current affairs. I mean, a lot of surveys that I've read show that young people now, for instance, in the UK and the US, are, well, especially progressives and more liberal people, specifically white liberals and white progressives, are far more likely than any other demographic to completely sever ties with friends and family because of a difference in opinion about some sort of very topical cultural, political and social issue. So I think that's very unique. It's it's something that UK political parties are really grappling with in terms of understanding how to attract young voters, because the standard things of just make them homeowners and just wait for them to be like blue pilled, say, from the Conservative side of things, is not sufficient enough to attract voters and to attract a young demographic. And so I think that this is quite unique. I think that sort of the distinction, I think a very important distinction between the private realm and the public realm has now been decimated essentially by a lot of this sort of politics becoming very personal and the personal being political.
How much of this
Yeah.
do you think is a result of us as individuals making our lives more public? Now, right? And this is something I thought about as a content creator. That's fairly small, right? But as I grow, people want to know me more. I become the content, right? I become the product that I'm selling to people. Okay. And so there is a risk, right? A lot of my private life becoming public. And we see this on the smaller scale with people that utilize social media. We see people on Instagram posting pictures about their families and their friends, their life. Their life is now, the individual's life is now public in a way it has never been before, right? You can see the inner workings of what is shared by people in a way that you just could not before. So I wonder how much of this phenomenon that you notice of people being excommunicating people from their lives because of their views is because these views are now public in a way that they haven't been in the past. I wonder if that has a lot to do with this.
Yes, I'd say so. I think we're trying to I think it's going to take a long time with anything. It takes a long time to establish sort of a standard of ethics around something, and especially something as new as the internet and people sharing a very curated version of their lives online. I think it's very difficult to navigate that. And so, yeah, I agree with that. I do think that everything being a lot more public has definitely, I think, really incentivized this idea of using politics and using ideology to make sense of all these complex, various lives, various spheres, various subcultures suddenly just on the same platform doing a whole lot of different things. Yeah.
One of the things that you took issue with on Twitter and in the video, right, is some of the labels that people have put on individuals, including you and others, such as J.K. Rowling. Right? And I just wanted to kind of talk to you about that. Do you not think that there is any utility in being able to identify and label someone who is a participant in an ideology, right? So someone who professes to worship Christ, we would label them Christian. That's a Christian, right? When someone who votes Democrat, right? That's a Democrat, or has leftist talking points. That's a leftist, right? We utilize these labels as kind of a shortcut, right? To kind of like, we can see this person has this sort of ideology, right, that they're participating in. And so we put that label on them. I would agree with you in that it's a mistake to think that's all they are. But I wonder if not in refusing to use these labels is also a mistake. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I don't think there's an either or, though. I think there can be an in between, and I think there importantly has to be an in between. I think, for instance, of the example of Adolf Eichmann. Do you know Adolf Eichmann? He was a Nazi official who was tried in Jerusalem in the 60s, and it was a huge trial. And the political philosopher Hannah Arendt covered it in Jerusalem and then ended up writing a book called Eichmann in Jerusalem. And basically her argument was that Eichmann wasn't a Nazi, he was a bureaucrat. And he exhibited sort of all the tenets of a bureaucrat who was ultimately, his defense was that he didn't hate Jews, he was just doing his job because that was his job and that's what he had to do. He had to deal with all these people, he had to make ABC go at a sort of glacial pace, and that was that. He had no vested interest or whatever. He was quite stupid. He was very insignificant, rather cowardly, but he was ultimately just a bureaucrat, a very boring, banal individual. And Hannah Arendt basically said that he exhibits sort of the banality of evil, that evil isn't sort of like this malicious, like sort of Nazi, like out in the streets, like shooting Jews, X, Y, and Z, but is actually just a banal human being like everybody else, that evil is just banal. It really is. And in not recognizing that, we actually really do a disservice to ourselves, in which things like the Holocaust can actually happen because everybody is living in a completely different world and reality to what is actually there in front of them. They're sort of looking for demons all around them when actually there's a part of that demon in all of us. And that's not to completely dismiss or to at all dismiss that he was a Nazi, but it's to add that all essential nuance to it, looking at this individual as the complex, banal individual that he was, looking at TERFs as the banal, everyday human beings and complex human beings that they are, and realizing that actually it's really not that simple to just say you're a TERF point blank,
Certainly.
as I was told this week. So I think
Certainly.
that's what's missing from all of this.
Well, couple things. So certainly, yes, the banality of evil is a thing, right? This idea that, like, there's a saying, right? Evil wins when good men do nothing. And routine, the everyday kind of little evils that we commit by failing to act or acting just as everyone else is acting, is something that should be taken into account. But is not one of the ways to combat that by calling it out, right? By pointing out, hey, right, I know that you're just an individual person who is doing these individual things for probably reasons you think are virtuous and and normal, but what you are actually doing is causing a lot of harm, and you're actually upholding, right, whether you mean to or not, this ideology. So in the case of the Nazi, right, if more people, right, had been willing to point out during that time, like, hey, what we're doing is monstrous, and calling the people doing it monsters, right? I think that might have had an effect on. Now, obviously, World War II, the whole state is this monstrous organization. There's not much individually you can do, but if I do wonder if enough had been willing to call it out for what it was, if it might have had any mitigating effect on what happened. I don't know. Like, that's one of those things where we can't know what it would be like if we did it, if we went back and we changed the past, right? We can only guess. We can only speculate,
exactly.
right? But when it comes to things like calling the rhetoric trans exclusionary radical feminist rhetoric, right? If someone thinks that's doing harm, I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing to say, hey, I think that you are this, and now it becomes bad if they say you are this, so we're going to dismiss you and dehumanize you and never talk to you again. I think that's bad. Yeah, I'm with you there. But simply using these labels correctly, I think that's actually probably a good thing, in my opinion.
But are they being used correctly? Because I would say that now TERF is not used just as sort of an abbreviation for trans exclusionary radical feminist, but it's used as a derogatory insult for a woman or a man. mainly for women, though. That's sort of there's sort of a bit of misogyny like tinged in a lot of this, which is very interesting to see. But I think that the issue with terms like that, and with sort of using these terms in the way that I don't think they are used accurately, is that the point of them is to completely distinguish them or the other from myself. So you're a TERF, I'm not. Like, it's all in the power of you not being what that person is. And I think in that completely that turns you into a superhuman and somebody else into a non-human, essentially. And then you can't build any kind of connection or bridge. I mean, it's very hard for me to interact with somebody who tells me that I'm a TERF, but you know,
Should it be?
No,
should
no,
it
it
be?
should. That's the thing. That's the thing. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And I think that's the problem with how TERF and terms like this and sort of the ideology behind it. I think that's the issue, in that now it's being used in order to create a division with no incentive to bridge that division.
That's
There's
the
no.
thing. That's the thing, Kidology, right? Like, if the problem isn't with the term, but within how people are using it and what they're using it to do to you, right, or do to others, right? I again, the problem, in my opinion, isn't with the term. Like, I get you. I'm with you on that. These terms are super overgeneralized, just like Nazi is, right? You disagree with me on a policy position, you must be a Nazi, right? That's overblown, and no one wins. Okay, if you keep calling everything the worst possible thing that it can be, like if every disagreement or every kind of right-leaning position is Nazism, the term loses meaning, right? I'm with you there. But there is, right, utility and usefulness in saying, hey, this person is a TERF. Like, for example, I will just ask you point blank, do you think that J.K. Rowling is a TERF?
A trans exclusionary feminist.
Radical feminist, yes.
Yes, I do think she's a radical feminist. Yes,
Okay.
yes,
and do you think she's trans
that her priority. I think she has priorities, and I think her priority is biological woman, because she ultimately sees trans ideology as being an affront to her particular politics and interest. I don't think she doesn't believe what she said, and I believe what people say publicly. I'm inclined to, because that's all we have. She has said that she loves and cares for trans people, so I will believe that she does love and care for trans people. But trans people aren't her priority. Similarly to how with trans activists, their priorities aren't biological women, or aren't sort of these the woman who TERFs are representing, say. So yeah, I think she's a radical feminist.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just disagree. I think that, like, actions speak louder than words, right? When you say that we all can only go on what people say, I don't think that's true. Especially when you have a public figure such as J.K. Rowling, who has put her money where where she values, right, and advocated for and against things, right? And I think that, like, to again say that she's not trans exclusionary. Now, you can argue, right? You could argue that trans people should be excluded from some spaces, right? So maybe a women's shelter or something. You could argue that. I don't think so, but that's a discussion we can have. But to pretend
that's what she argues.
Yeah, but to pretend that that's not
priorities.
Yeah, but to pretend that that's not trans exclusionary is just missing the mark, right? It's just wrong.
Okay, well, yes, in that sense, it's exclusionary. But in the sense of her being transphobic, I wouldn't agree.
I
would say that there's a distinction there.
Word. Transphobic's a weird word. It's hard to kind of, okay.
Because I think they're conflated, unfortunately, in such a way that sort of being trans exclusionary is deemed as being transphobic and bigoted. And, I have a completely different outlook to J.K. Rowling. But I think she's perfectly entitled to have the views that she has.
Sure.
And based on her history, her personal history, it makes perfect sense. Just like 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜's or femoid's politics. It makes perfect sense to me because of
I can
her
understand
entire
it.
personal history.
No,
So
I
get
agree
it.
with you. I agree with you. I can understand it, but just because we can understand and even empathize to a point doesn't mean we can condone it, right? And I think that, like, when we look at what J.K. Rowling has been through, right, when it comes to the personal attacks on her, we can look at that and say, hey, that was over the line, that shouldn't have happened. But we cannot use that to excuse the actions that she has done and the words and rhetoric that she has done towards others. Both on an individual basis when she puts people on blast on Twitter and on a policy basis when she advocates for things that I think would actually hurt trans movements in Britain and trans healthcare in Britain. I think that we can't just say we can't just as it would be foolish to say she's a villain. It's also foolish to say she's a hero. Right? She's just a person.
Oh, I never said she's a hero.
I understand, but
I'm not making that distinction
I understand. I understand, but what people hear,
nowhere near.
I understand, but what people hear and what you communicate and what you intend to communicate are sometimes different things, right? Like, I do this all the time. I intend to say one thing, but it comes out weird, and people are like, "Oh, Wick, how could you think this?" And that's miscommunication largely on my part. And I think that, like, when we look at J.K. Rowling, for example, right? Again, like, we have this tendency to either run defense for her or to excoriate her. And I think we should just take each individual thing she does and judge that on the merits, right? On the merits of, do we agree with this? Why? Do we think this was good or bad? Why? And we can separate this from the person, right? We don't have to internalize it to her. We can look at her behaviors, look at her thoughts, look at her action. Well, not her thoughts, but look at her tweets and other public things she said, and we can say, well, this is good because of X, or this is bad because of Y. We don't have to say, hey, you're just a bad person. We can say, hey, this rhetoric is turfy, but that doesn't maybe make you a bad transphobe in your heart of hearts. I think that
I agree with
we can
that,
maybe
but
build
I think
a
it's
bridge
impossible.
Here.
Yes, exactly. But I do think it's impossible, at least with somebody who, I think it's only possible in actual sort of representative politics, that you can distinguish the person from their actions. I don't think it's possible with somebody like a public figure like J.K. I don't think it's possible with anybody to distinguish sort of the person from their actions. So when J.K. Rowling does something, I inevitably am going to look at sort of J.K. Rowling as a human being and sort of what her personal history tells me of why she's potentially saying what she's saying and doing what she's doing. And I'm going to try and understand where she's coming from. I'm going to take myself out of my shoes and out of what I think and sort of try and see why she's thinking that way. Because then that is the essential component in building some kind of bridge in order to communicate in a meaningful way. And if you're not willing to do that, then you've already lost the battle before you've even gone to the battlefield.
No,
so
I don't disagree
I think
with
that is
point.
vital.
I don't disagree with that, but we have an accord in that, right? That even the people we think that are bad people, we still have to talk to them and understand where they're coming from, right? But again, in your Oxfam video, right? You took strenuous objection to her being characterized as a TERF, and you also, right? And I wonder, and I'll ask you directly, right? Because people have used this label to attack you, right? I wonder if this doesn't make you a little overly biased towards other people who've been attacked by the same label, whether or not it's fair to label them because you feel unfairly labeled, right? You're kind of extrapolating that feeling to, like, well, if they're attacking me like this, maybe they're attacking this other person like this too. And so your heart goes out to them. You try to emphasize with them. That's a good thing. But it creates this kind of blind spot, I wonder. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But I think the way to try and overcome that as best I can is to interact with as many people as I can from both sides and see who is going to sort of be the more willing to reciprocate my efforts to communicate. And at the moment, it's been the so-called TERFs who are a lot more willing to communicate with me, even though we
Sure,
don't agree on
because
much.
you're not
but-
trans. Yes, of course, because A, you're not trans, so they see you as a person, and two, right? A and two. A and B,
actually,
because
a lot of them see trans people as people. They just have. A lot of the people I have spoken to, their concern sort of, I think, revolves around the idea that sort of women's rights in the West are sort of a very new phenomena, like well and truly, like
Sure.
quite
I
new
agree
for
with
us.
you. Mhm.
And then all of a sudden now, everybody's asking what is a woman, and medical science is especially behind when it comes to the female anatomy and understanding women and how women's bodies work. And now there seems to be more attention, seemingly, on sort of trans woman or being a transgender individual than on sort of the female anatomy and concerns with that. And I think there is this sense of sort of, I don't know, it seems quite mournful for a lot of biological women, sort of a mourning of sort of the promises of being a woman. And I would say there's resentment, there's confusion, there's upset, and a lot of anger. And I'm not saying that anger is justified in every single case, but I can understand why it's there. I can understand why there is a lot of fear and a lot of anger and a lot of upset. And it doesn't help to ignore that to call those women bigots and hateful Nazis. That doesn't help at all.
I get you. I'm with you. But the problem is, right? And because I have people who've talked to me about this, right? And I tend to agree with them, right, on this. And Kidology, I love you. You're great. You're awesome. But I think that you tend to, right? And I mean this in all kindness, that you tend to understand this, the TERF point of view, whereas it doesn't seem you understand the trans point of view, right? Because all that fear, all that mourning, all that kind of all these negative kind of people coming after them, this is something that a lot of trans people have expressed to me is their life. They feel under attack. They just want to they don't want all this attention. And to be clear, the reason that we're talking about trans stuff isn't because of trans people. It's because the right wing in America, right? I can't speak for British politics, but in America, it's because the right wing has made them the boogeyman. They have, much like they did Muslims after 9/11, right? They have tag, you're it, right wing. We're right wing. We need an enemy to fight against. Women doesn't work anymore. So now we have to go to trans people, and they have been targeted. That is why, right, a lot of the discussion nowadays from Matt Walsh and these things are targeting these people. Now, again, I won't say that trans Twitter has done some terrible things, right? That they're dumb.
Can I just interject quickly?
Please.
Because I agree with you. I completely agree with you on that. I agree with you on that there is this like sort of trans people are sort of the boogeyman to the online and alt-right. I completely agree with that. But I think that a distinction that needs to be made, importantly, is between trans people and trans ideology, especially as trans ideology manifests itself online. That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to. Because I think that's a very important distinction. Because the majority of trans people are not like these online trans activists who seem to believe that they represent every single trans person and go absolutely apeshit online. It's completely different. And unfortunately, the online alt-right takes a hold of that and uses that as sort of this example of what all trans people are, which is absolutely ludicrous and completely wrong and is terrible and is causing a lot of harm to trans people in the world to be like not so monolithic trans people who are just trying to live their lives, their everyday lives. And it is terrible. And that is absolutely awful and cannot be condoned in any way. But
once again though, like when you talk about this trans ideology, right? Again, in your Oxfam video, you made ideologies replacing these individuals. And I understand that like on a personal level, individual level, trans people, no problem with them. I understand. But you seem to have a problem with what you consider to be trans ideology. And I'm trying to understand what you think trans ideology is, just so we can talk about it.
I think it's quite well represented by 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 online on Twitter. This idea that Eli, she put out a tweet a few days ago, basically saying that trans women are biological women. It represents sort of an ideology where there's absolutely no compromise, where there is absolutely no room for empathy, where there isn't any room for a reckoning with a reality that is not your reality. And I don't say that this is exclusive to trans ideology as it manifests on Twitter specifically. I think that this is a feature of all ideology, especially on Twitter, especially of the right. The right has found their boogeyman, say, in the likes of 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. The left online has found theirs in J.K. Rowling. I don't think it's healthy for anybody. And I think that there is no ideology that is exempt from this. That's my problem with trans ideology.
I think the word you're looking for is zealotry, which I think is much different than ideology. Not all ideology is bad. There's some ideology that, we all, in a way, have our own sense of ideology and our belief structures and things like that. But when it becomes zealotry, right, I think that becomes a problem. And it's not unique to the trans movement, as you so wisely pointed out. This is something that zealotry is bad no matter, like, what kind of ideology it springs from. Zealots are
I'd say that people don't have ideology. We have faith and beliefs. I think zealotry is far more in line with ideology. Most definitely. I don't think that has much to do with our beliefs and our belief systems in our personal lives, sort of in our lifestyles, say. I think there is a distinction there.
I don't want to get in the semantics game with this, right? Because I think we're just using different words to communicate similar things, right? I just wouldn't use that specific word, but I'm trying to understand what you're saying, right? Or what you're trying to communicate. So the trans ideology, right, that you mentioned, is not, I think, representative of what what the trans experience is, and nor what trans people really believe. I think there is a subset. There is a subset of bad actors out there. Absolutely. And you can find this in any movement that are just
and they're always the loudest.
Yeah, that are trying to shout. But I think that, like, we have to recognize that as outliers, and we push back against that, and I push back against that kind of thinking, but that does not, like, excuse what is, I consider, bad actors on the other side using those examples in order to push real harmful legislation onto onto trans individuals that will affect trans individual lives, access to healthcare, right, access to the hormone treatments that they need, right, access to all these other things that they have, like these talking points are being used and weaponized against the trans movement in a way. And
exactly.
I think that, like, again, the trans movement has made some missteps. I will agree with you. I think they've made some missteps, and I think that there's too much purity testing on the left, 100%. But again, what I started this criticism off with is that I think that you give much more credence to the TERF ideology, and you tend to dismiss the problems coming from the other side. And I don't know if it's true. It's just how it comes off. Does that make sense? Like, I don't, we, despite, our budding friendship, we talk rarely because you never answer DMs. So I've only seen your public statements on this. I've only got what we've talked about online with this, which is very little. So I could very well be mistaken. But if I am mistaken, I want to give this an opportunity to you to kind of like correct the record, to kind of correct my misgivings and other people's misgivings about this, and say, maybe put to rest, put to bed these horrific allegations and all that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think on Twitter, the problem with Twitter is that I think what's happened is that because I tweet a lot about the other side, and I don't say anything about the other side.
Yeah, it's
that's
true.
deemed as me, therefore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's deemed as me, therefore being in support of that side. Just because I don't say anything about them in a tweet, because I'm not sort of trying to do a 50-50 thing, it doesn't mean that I therefore am in allegiance with the other side. I've made it perfectly clear that I'm not in the political X versus Y, the binary, the distinction between that. It does not interest me at all, and I'm not involved in any of that. It doesn't mean that I am on the side of the enemy, say, just because I don't speak of them. I mean, there's enough on Twitter of like people like calling them out and everything, and I like those tweets and everything, but because this is something that I'm confronted with a lot more by people, I'm going to respond to it. So does that make sense?
It does make sense. But Fondue and Mike Mees paid $20 to say this. Every word with negative connotation will always be used to dismiss. The correct way to use them is at the end of speaking to a person. Bad actors use this to paint targets on people's backs ahead of conversations to silence. I agree with that. I do hear what you're saying. I face similar accusations, right? Because people see me calling out the left, right? When I think the left is doing something wrong or doing something incorrect, I will tweet about it and say, hey, I don't think that's correct, blah, 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 and I'll go at it, right? And so people use that against me to say, well, why don't you call out the right? I do call out the right. I just see less of them because I follow less of them on Twitter. That's really it at the end of the day. But I think that the difference is in principle. And what I mean by that is this. So I have certain principles, such as I value free speech, the ability to freedom of expression and individual rights to expression. That is a huge thing for me. So when the right violates it, like DeSantis does in Florida all the time, I call that shit out. And when the left tries to violate it with J2 all the time, I call that shit out as well. When you are only calling out one side for violating a principle, but people don't see you call out the other side for violating that same principle, it sends a message that I don't think you're intending to send, right? So your principle here is you want to protect. Well, I'll just ask you, what's your principle in regards to the women and in general? Does that question make sense? Like, so women's rights seem very important to you. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Yes.
Yeah, and when you think that they're under attack from the trans ideology, as you say, you'll call it out, correct?
I mean, I don't think that women's rights are under attack from trans people. Okay, I don't think so. I do make a distinction. I do think that female is in a very lucrative position. I distinguish between female and between woman. I think female, that is sex, that is a binary.
Do you think that is not something right now?
I wouldn't say it's under attack. I think it's in a precarious place. And I think that's making a lot of people very frightened. I wouldn't say like sort of like attack all guns blazing, but I think it's very precarious in that people aren't making that very important distinction between female and between woman. Anybody can be a woman, quite frankly. Trans woman or woman, what have you. One becomes a woman. I very much subscribe to that Simone de Beauvoirian idea and notion that to be a woman is you become a woman. But female is very different to male and is distinct from male. And I think that there's a lot of confusion with all of this right now, and a lot of anger, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of ideology clashing with ideology. And I do think that it's in a precarious place. And I think that affects things where that binary does matter, such as in women's sports, ontologically called women's sports.
I understand.
But ultimately about sort of female sports.
It's frustrating.
So yeah,
this is frustrating for me, right? Because you say it's in a precarious position, but at least in my view, right, it seems to me that the reason you think this is in a precarious position is because people are attacking the concept of it. And I understand you don't want to say that it's under attack because there's
no, I think that's hyperbolic because it's very different online.
Perhaps. I mean, but this online stuff is making so this isn't a you thing. This is just something I'm frustrated with in general. Whereas people, well, it's just online, so it doesn't matter. I don't think that's true at all. I think that a lot of online discourse does drive legislation. And I think that we can see that in a lot of cases in the trans legislation in America, at least, that is being passed about drag queen stuff and things like that, that's trying to get through the law. This is driven by online. So to say that it's very online is true, but also dismissive in a way that I think is not helpful, because saying it's online doesn't and shouldn't dismiss it. Right, because it's online, but it still matters.
Yes, I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying that it is online, and I agree with you. I think that one issue that I have, I don't think any elected politician should have Twitter at all. Not an official account, not a personal one at all, because that has really destroyed legislation and destroyed the perception that the political class has of what people actually care about. Politicians are so fixated on what everybody is talking about on Twitter and legislating that they don't actually appreciate the reality of the situation, which is that the majority of people are not on Twitter and don't give a fuck about Twitter. And I think that is a huge problem. I mean, Ted Cruz is spending more time concentrating on trying to brand Dylan Mulvaney as selling alcohol to kids than he is on anything to do with actual Texans and their lives, which is ludicrous. So I think that is definitely a problem, but I think it's important to actually drive that point home that this is online, because this is online. This isn't the real world. And I think the sooner, especially politicians, start to realize that and actually really take that on board, the better.
I don't want to blame politicians for this. This isn't the politicians' problem. The only ones speaking are the people who are all big mad. If the silent majority, right? The silent majority, that's a term that's been used in American politics for years and years and years and years. That there, even before social media was a thing, that Republicans would said, well, we know that the left and the liberals, quote unquote, talk a lot and they're the loudest, but the silent majority actually thinks this. The problem with that is that they're silent, so we don't know what they actually think. Because they haven't been speaking, because they haven't been telling us what they think, we can't hear them. And so while you may be correct that the most people don't think this way, they're not saying anything. They're not saying anything, at least not where we can hear it. So
because they don't care about this stuff.
Yeah, but
because the silent majority cares about its power, which is mainly in having financial, economic power, and they don't have any power now. The silent majority has literally no power
only
in the US and in the UK, and it is
If they okay,
No,
so again, this
you
isn't a
don't have.
politician.
You don't just not have power
This
because you
isn't
don't
a
try to use it.
this isn't a politician problem, Kidal. Let me finish my thought and I'll let you respond. This isn't
Okay.
this isn't a I know it's frustrating. I still love you. It's okay.
Fine. Oh,
But this isn't a problem with the politicians. The politicians are listening to because they want to do what most people want because they want your vote. They want to get elected to office. That's their incentive. They want your vote to get into a position of power so they can take corporations' money, so they can make money and have power. And in order to do that, they have to get the most votes. So they want to do what most of their constituents want them to do, for the most part. There's some exceptions, but that's generally the rule. That's the incentive structure that seems to work out. The silent majority, if they spoke up, if they actually went out, right? It's the tyranny of the present, as they say in the advocacy culture. If you don't show up, you don't matter. If you don't vote, you don't matter. Why would anyone listen to you if you don't vote? Because you're not participating in the system. You're not affecting the system. You literally have no voice and no say because you have chosen not to. And the silent majority that you're speaking of, right? And the real world people, if they wanted to, if they wanted to get involved, if they wanted to get doing this thing, they could absolutely say, hey, we don't care about this shit. We want you to discuss dinner table issues such as gas prices, jobs, etc. The problem is that they're not. They're all engaging with this crazy stuff. They are. Even in my family, who are mostly not online, like my the neighbors around me and stuff, mostly not online, right? But they do know about the Dylan Mulvaney, and they do know about J.K. Rowling, and they do know about all this online stuff because that's what they hear too. So that my rant's done. You can respond. I'm sorry. I'll shut my mouth now. I'll shut up.
Okay, but why are they speaking about these things? They're speaking about these things because this is all that the online and therefore the media, which is trying to compete with the online, is talking about. That's all that anybody is talking about. They're only talking about gender and about whether woman or woman. It doesn't sort of go beyond identity politics, regrettably. And so everybody has to talk about that because that's all anybody has information about. And that's all that is sort of driving clicks and views ultimately. And so it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, as opposed to it being sort of a manifestation of what the silent majority is actually interested in or what they actually care about. And I think that's demonstrative in voting, in why the silent majority isn't voting. Why would people vote in a system that is effectively broken and has proved itself time and time and again to in no way represent people? I would say I'm going especially in the UK in terms of how our first past the post system works. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous that that is still our way of voting. It really is just so de-incentivizing for people. And I also don't agree with your idea that politicians are interested in the majority of voters. I think when you know that or the majority aren't going to vote, you don't have to care about the majority. You only have to care about not numbers, but power. And ultimately, I mean, in the UK, and I'd say the same in the US, it's the land-owning, landlord class who have the power and who actually go out and vote. And so, for instance, in the UK, the Conservative Party is in a bit of a dilemma because, unfortunately, their primary demographic are now retiring and they're also dying of old age. And they have virtually under, I would say, 13% of the support of millennials and Gen Zers. And that's going to be a problem, but maybe not for long, because I think it's got more to do with power than it does to do with numbers. I think it is who owns the most, who has the most influence, that is ultimately the concern of politicians. Which is why I think it's been so easy for the left to forget about the working classes in the US and the UK. I think because they have so little power, especially now, especially since the 1980s, late 1970s, I think it's very easy to now forget about the powerless. And as such, the powerless don't stay silent. And why would they participate in a system which time and again has failed them and proves itself to be failing them?
So, just real quick, $10 from Origin of Language to say, whenever anyone tries to lecture me in an overly didactic tone, especially if they don't understand what they're talking about, I ignore them. I would recommend you do the same, Kidology. Thank you for the $10. So, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that politicians don't care about people who don't vote. Why would they? People who don't vote don't affect them. They have ceded their power, right? They are powerless, but because they have chosen to cede their power, and you can argue, which you have, that they don't see any effective change, they don't see this as a thing. I just fundamentally disagree with that. Again, maybe it's because I'm older, right? But there is a substantive difference, right, between the Clinton years for my family, right, who was in the military, and the Bush years in 2000, right? There was a substantive difference that we could feel. It was palpable. We felt the difference, right, as a family. I felt the difference between the Obama years, right, and the Trump years. Now, obviously, local politics will have much more of an effect on the individual, and local politics has had a much more effect on me too. But at least in the American system, I can't speak for you Britain people with your monarchies and stuff, but in the American system, it absolutely is the case that voting has ramifications, real acts on the ground that, again, do impact things. Now, you're not going to win every vote. Yeah, and I think that does kind of disillusion people, right? Especially if it's their first time voting, right? And they vote for a person and the person doesn't win. They're like, oh, this, we'll just throw up our hands. Why even participate? Nothing's going to change. Nothing happens. But I just find that to be doomerism. I don't find that to be helpful. And it saddens me. It does, that people like cede their power. The only power that they have in a democratic system, really, especially if you're poor, especially if you don't have monetary resources, the one thing you do have is your vote. And to just give that up seems foolish to me. But we're kind of looping on this a little bit. I want to move on the conversation. Unless you have.
But I do agree with you on that. I do agree with you on that. I am probably a bit more empathetic. I think maybe because of the UK, because since I've lived in this country, each government that's been elected has completely forgotten about and dismissed their manifesto, the entire platform that they were riding on. And it's really failed a lot of people. And I think also because of how voting here is essentially you can win by one vote and you just take all. I think that is incredibly demoralizing. And yeah. But I think definitely different.
You know how that system could change? If people voted for it. If people voted and elected representatives that would change that system would change. But they don't. And I understand why they don't. And it's hard. It's a hurdle to overcome. But again, we could change it if we really wanted to. We've made big changes in the past, at least in America, right?
I don't think it's that simple, unfortunately.
It's not.
I think, especially now, right, I don't think... But in the UK, it's essentially the civil service who runs this country, and it sort of depends on what's happening in the civil service, which nobody can vote on and nobody knows anything about, essentially. So, I thank them for their service, but also I don't know their service. And I think in the US and in the UK, I think bureaucracy is really something that either as a politician you go after and inevitably fail, but sort of make like a dent in the bureaucracy, or you just go with it and just benefit from it. And I think time and time again, the incentive is, and the easy route is to benefit from bureaucracy, benefit from the status quo, as opposed to actually doing anything meaningful to actually try and change it, because inevitably you're going to fail. But I think that trying is the important thing, and I think when people see that their politicians aren't trying, why are they going to even bother time, every 4 or so years.
You were right in that it's not simple. It's a very complex problem. There's a lot of moving parts, and we could actually speak on this for hours, right? But I do want to get in, if you're okay,
Oh,
to the
yes,
other
yes.
other issue. So
Completely, yes.
I think that we just have kind of like this impasse on the label thing and the impasse on the politicians and the silent majority
I
thing.
still love
That's
you.
okay.
Don't worry.
Well, thank you. Me too. And that's fine. And that's, gang, that's how it should be. If you have a disagreement, you fight, but it doesn't matter. You have beers afterwards, and you know, you do your thing. That's good. Let's talk about the Coomer post that you made a lot of
So
people.
can I ask, what does Coomer mean?
Okay. What does
sorry.
Coomer mean? No, it's fine. It's internet slang. I didn't know before coming to the internet either. Coomer is when you're horny posting. It's horny posting. Okay. It's being like sexualization, sexual on main, things like that. It's cooming. Okay. So a lot of people
like flirting.
Not just flirting, but being overly sexual on main. And by main being like in public.
Okay.
So that is how a lot of people characterized your tweet. You were being overly sexual in public. And that's why a lot of people had some issues with it. I was flattered. I thought it was great.
Sexual.
I
didn't show any nudes of anyone. I just showed men with beards and glasses and said, rate their specs.
How can this not be sexual though? Like, really? Okay, but no, for real.
It was flirtatious.
It was flirtatious.
I didn't find it sort of horny. I mean, I wasn't sort of wet while I was making it, you know.
Well, let's bring up the tapes, gang. Let me get the post up. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me read some of this stuff.
Oh, goodness.
And I'll let you, my dear viewer, judge. Hold on. 1 second.
Let me also bring it up just so this happened a while back. Things have really moved quickly. So,
okay, we'll go through your tweets.
Bear with me. I'm searching.
Sure we'll find it soon. You don't tweet too much.
Oh, yes.
Maybe you tweet more than I thought. Damn.
Recently, because I haven't had internet, so this has been my way of.
Okay, here we go. So I don't think anyone had problems with just rating us, right? It was the devil's in the details here. Okay. So I'm gonna read you some of these. Okay. And you tell me if these are overly sexual or not in your opinion. You can tell me, okay? Irrational Chad, number 1. Utterly hilarious, already has my nudes. I don't know. Why would anyone think that's sexual? Who knows, right? Why would anyone think that's sexual? Right?
I'll explain this.
Great finessing qualities. Sadly, his toxic community would probably traumatize me into becoming an OnlyFans content creator. Where would that be sexual? I don't know. Probably never seen a black woman in the flesh. Long face indicative of murky face. Okay. How is this not even just that? There's more. There's like 6 other posts. Okay. But with just that one, can you? Okay, please.
Yeah, I can explain this one. Okay, I'm going off because every now and again I watch 𝕾𝖍𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. Okay, I think he's sort of the epitome of a modern sort of, I wouldn't say crass, but sort of raw Englishman. Okay, like he's sort of the kind of guy that you could just have banter with, that you could make the most outrageous jokes to, and you could say the most outrageous things to, and he's absolutely hilarious. I absolutely, like, he doesn't know who I am, but I absolutely adore him, right? So anyway, one day I was feeling especially confident because he was reacting to, I think, a stream that I did with somebody, and I decided to make my move, my banter, British banter move. Yeah, like the way that I sort of banter with people in Britain, you know, just sort of very much sort of everything is just like
you go up
jabbing.
To people and
so I
say,
went for him.
Wait,
no, people that I sort of know, sort of like
so
sort of like I'm acquainted with, right?
Like not strangers, but acquaintances.
No, I don't
let's say acquaintances. Let's say acquaintances. People you know, right? People you know.
Yes.
You go up and kind of make this kind of banter where it's like this sexual banter with them. I mean, I'm not judging if that's what you do.
I mean, I've made it known. I've made it known. I'm a very flirtatious person. Like I will flirt with everybody and anybody. It is. I find it a very effective way to break the ice, and also it's just not expected, especially from a woman. So I do enjoy it a lot. I mean, I flirt with everybody and anybody when I'm out in public, on the internet, as I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah.
I flirt with you. So yeah, it is just my way of sort of communicating. I think it's just the easiest way to break the ice. But then with 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, he's just so. I mean, he's an outrageous personality online, and so I made this joke once on his stream. I sent him a super chat, and I think he was talking about somebody's nudes, and I said, "You can leak my nudes anytime," just for confirmation. There are absolutely no nudes. I've never taken a nude photo of myself in my life, so there's absolutely no nudes. I'm a very, I may have a lip, but I'm very kosher in every other domain of my life. So this is probably me compensating for how conservative I am in every other sphere of my life. But yes. So I just made that joke, and he laughed at it on stream. So I didn't see a problem with me making it here. But now another streamer has given me some context as to why 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 may not have responded sort of in the kind of way of bantering that typically happens to me when I make such jokes to especially British men. And we usually have a back and forth, and it's a great laugh, and somebody buys somebody a beer at the end of the day or whatever. And I completely understand that now. And so for that reason, I have not spoken about 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 at all. And aside from this, I will, completely I wish him all the best. Love his content. He's great. He's brilliant. But I understand now. And so it makes perfect sense to me.
I mean, but he wasn't the only one, right? Like, so you go through President Sunday, you go through DJ Mule, you go through Wash.
Oh yeah, we can go through all of them. Yes, please.
Well, I don't want to like get lost in the weeds here, because I have an overall point that I want to make with this, right?
Okay.
If I were to put up pictures of streamers, women streamers, female streamers, right? I won't even name them, right? I don't want to embarrass people. And then I started making these kinds of comments like, oh man, this female streamer, oh, she already has my nudes. She can leak them anytime. I send my dick pics all up in her DMs and she loves them. And I start making these overtly sexual references, okay? What do you think would happen to me? What do you think the response would be, right? From not only the women I was making these things about, but the communities of these women and the community in general. What can you take a guess? Maybe what would occur?
You'd probably get cancelled.
Yeah. Yeah. That's putting it mildly, right? I would, not only that, right, but the people that I was talking about, right, probably would feel very uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, I don't want to even name people, right? But if a female streamer that I'd worked with, right, and I'd talked to, or even just knew of, right, and maybe covered their content, and I started making these overtly sexual comments about, they would probably feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, well, again, I thought it was hilarious because it's ridiculous and it's funny. Do you understand how someone like 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 or some of these other content creators, right, would feel a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, I respect their feelings of feeling uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything, firstly, negative about their appearance. Everything that I said about people's appearance was positive. And otherwise, anything negative I said was a joke or a satirical joke. I purposely didn't comment on how they looked in a negative sense. I made compliments about their physical appearance. And also, it would depend what pictures you put up of, say, these female streamers. I put up pictures of their face with glasses. That was all I did.
I understand. President Sunday, second sentence in, third sentence in, sorry. Sadly, shaved his hair, which takes him from softcore Chad to incel. I mean, that's about his looks, right?
I did clarify this, yes, and that's actually a compliment. That is a compliment.
To call him an incel is a
I
compliment?
said, first, no, can I just explain? I said that he has brilliant facial structure, which he does. He's a very attractive fellow. Like, he's got a great face, right? And then I found this photo online where he had hair, and I didn't know that he'd had hair before. Like, I didn't know. So I assumed that he must have shaved it. And because it's a running thing within incel spheres that bald men are by default incels, that obviously they can't, like, there's no hope for them, right? I made a joke basically saying that he is a soft-core Chad, which means that he's sort of like the creme de la creme of men. But that because he's decided to shave his hair, he's now an incel. So, I mean, if he just grows his hair back, according to incel law, I mean, he'll be right back at the top. I, for one, as I said about his facial structure, I think he's a very attractive man.
Sure.
I think his personality, we could like polish that up a little bit, but I wouldn't change anything about Sunday. I mean, maybe his I don't know. He doesn't seem to like me at the moment, and seems quite invested in my entire life at this point. I think he's just concentrating on me as opposed to not so erudite. Yeah, I have no qualms with him.
Sure, I'll say this. I encourage you to keep doing this, but I warn you that it's going to make people uncomfortable. It's funny. I consent to it. All the weird flirty shit you want to do with me, that's cool. But I caution and encourage, perhaps, when we talk about empathy, right? Sympathy towards others, when we talk about trying to take other people's feelings into consideration. Some people it makes them very uncomfortable, and it's a risk when you just kind of pop off out of the blue. Like, again, if I had done this with 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝍍𝖔𝖜, with Katie, with any of these other streamers, and I just started making weird sexual comments, because they're my friends, 50-50, maybe they think it's funny, maybe they don't. But it puts them in such an awkward position, because if they don't think it's funny, right? If I, as a man, was offended about what you did, it puts me in an awkward position, because if I came out publicly to be offended, I look like a weirdo, right? I look like, wow, like she was complimenting you. How, and you're just making a big deal about this. It puts people in this weirdly uncomfortable position where even if they want to be uncomfortable and say, hey, I didn't really appreciate that, it makes them look weak to do so. It makes them look like a bad person, right?
I do understand that. Yeah. I mean, I understand that. I mean, I apologized to Sunday after I heard him talking about it. I did apologize to him.
Never apologize.
And he seemed fine with that.
Deserve your apology. No, I'm kidding.
Of course, he doesn't. But yeah, and Shark apparently said that I must keep his name out of my mouth, or whatever that means. So I haven't spoken about him or anything. And yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken about any of them aside from that. I do think that, however, just like on a sort of a bit of a tangent, I do think men have a real issue with accepting compliments because they don't get any, especially not from women, and sort of their whole life. It seems like a very weird thing to get compliments, or to have people say, I like your specs. By that I mean spectacles, a lot, or like, you look good. And I think that that's sort of where an element of the sort of it being awkward or uncomfortable comes from, because people don't compliment men. People just sort of ignore them in terms of
I agree with you.
Their physicality.
No, I agree
or
with
at
you.
least not ignore them, but sort of they only acknowledge it when they've got something negative to say. They don't acknowledge it like in a positive way, or sort of appreciate the sexuality of men.
I'm with you in concept. I am a compliment sponge. If you compliment me, if you flatter me, I will soak it up. And I think a lot of men are like that, because you are correct. A lot of men don't receive compliments. But this is a matter, right? This is a thing where you can do it. There's a right way to do it. Well, there's a lot of right ways to do it, and there's a lot of wrong ways to do it. And I think you took a risk. I think it was funny to watch, right? But I would as a friend, I would just caution in the future, right? If you wanted to do this, but you took out all the sexuality of it, I think it would have been great. No one would have complained. But because it was so overtly sexual, and it was overtly sexual, it was Kidology. Come on, it
I
was
just thought it was
overtly
flirting. I mean,
sexual.
that's sort of how I flirt.
But
So
that flirting
maybe
is
I'm
sexual,
overly
right?
sexual in my flirtation.
It is,
But
and
that
that's
is how I
okay,
flirt. So,
right? That's
yes.
okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people aren't comfortable with that, and a lot of people see it as like, okay, this is a little too far, too much, and I think that's a valid thing to think. I think that this again, mine was the best because it was just It was simple, it was direct, it wasn't overly sexual, it was just flawless. If you wanted to be overly sexual, you could. I would have laughed had you given me Irrational Chat or President Sundays or 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 or any of the others. I would have laughed. Oh, especially if you gave me 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙𝖘, right? That would have been funny on a lot of levels, right? But that's me individually. But as a whole, it's just a bad idea. Okay, I encourage you to give compliments, but to maybe take the sexuality out of it. Just my thoughts. President Sunday tried to pay me 100 bits, and once he successfully pays me 100 bits, I'll ask his question. But until he does, the question will remain unasked. But anyway.
Of course he's watching.
Of course. Yeah, it's just this.
I will definitely take.
No, and
your
please tell me
advice.
tell me to buzz off, right? Tell me to buzz off if
no, because it's important
right?
to take. Because yeah, what I mean, what's the point of me putting these things out there if it's not too sort of
Sure.
yeah, and like this is helpful, and this is it's beneficial to me, because then when I do something like this again, which I'm sure I will at some point, I'll just sort of see something and think, oh, they've all got the same, I don't know, color hair this month, so let's compliment or let's say something about that. So I'll take that on board, and trial and error, of course.
Fair
and
enough.
as soon as those people who are directly referenced acknowledged it and said no, completely okay.
I mean,
so,
you did though. You did make a members only stream that I saw, where you basically said to 𝕬𝖎𝖏 that, oh, you're a public figure, so I'm gonna keep doing it. I mean, that's what you said.
No, I didn't say I would keep doing it. I said that it doesn't make sense to me that you would say keep my name out of your mouth, as if you're a public figure. People are going to speak about you. I'm talking about him now, for instance. But I don't think. I mean, I don't think anybody's that important. I mean, if he has a problem with me, he can tell me that, not just sort of through the grapevine be like. I mean, it's just quite. I don't know. It's a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he quote tweeted you, which I mean isn't exactly direct communication, but it's not indirect either, right?
Oh, did he? Oh, I didn't see that. I just heard this.
I saw it.
I mean,
it was on my.
I don't even know.
I don't know if he blocked you.
So.
He may. So what may have happened, and I'm not sure how Twitter works. He may have blocked you or muted you, and so you didn't see it, right? But everyone else did. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I
don't
didn't
know, though.
see it,
I
mean,
can't say.
I've got nothing against him. I don't even know him,
yeah.
So
President Sunday did say this, because he did pay me. Kid calls shark the token black. Could Kid elaborate?
Well, because as I said in my stream, I mean, in every single context, there's always a token black, especially when you sort of have a whitewash of something. I mean, it's just in all advertising you see sort of they have their token black person, their token Asian person. It's just a person who's just there, who just sticks out like a sore thumb because of diversity points, or just so that the advertiser or whoever seems progressive or seems woke or what have you. So it's yes, that was the joke. As I said, I don't know Shark. The only reason I knew Shark, and the only reason why I included him, was because of the recent drama that had happened, where he was basically called like myself, like a raccoon or a coon, somebody who isn't actually black, whatever, by Soul Bunny and that sort of side of the online space. And so, yes, I decided to include the man who is now considered to not be a black man, as sort of the token black man in all of this, and that was obviously the only value that he had to the entire thing. Not his great glasses, which I thought were great, sure. And like all the men there, incredibly handsome. But yes, that was ultimately sort of the punch line or whatever it was.
Can you understand? Can you understand why that might come across less than favorable, right, towards you, right? You can understand maybe why.
Different humor, I think. No, I have quite dark humor, and
I thought it was hilarious. Sort of... But can you understand why other people might not?
Yes, but I don't think that doesn't make it funny. Just because it's not your brand of humor doesn't mean it's not funny. And I think that was the thing that people were saying, that I was racist, and it's like, no, that's the point of the joke. In some spheres, like I love all kinds of humor. Like I'm very I love comedy, and I love the most morbid, most degenerate humor out there. The edgier, the more sort of lowbrow, the better. I think
if you had done this with someone you had interacted with before, someone you had known, like 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 or something, right? Like, I don't recommend it, please.
I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
You had a whole conversation. Okay, first of all, actually, one of the things I do have an issue with, you have talked to 𝕻𝖎𝖙 before. You said in your members only stream you've never met him before. You've been on a panel with him before, on my show. We talked about the Roald Dahl stuff. We had a whole panel on it. He was on there.
These are people I didn't even know. Wick, okay, I don't know these people, so I don't remember. I don't remember. I do not remember speaking to 𝕻𝖎𝖙 at all. I'm afraid. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It was just like you did though. Like I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I'm so sorry. I don't remember who was even on that panel, or who.
I understand.
I don't know the names of most of the people.
My panels are catching strays here. Not very memorable.
No. It's no.
Catching strays. It's all good.
No. You invite me onto a panel, and I say yes, I'll come on. I don't know who's going to be on. And I think most of the time I'm just so nervous about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to sort of contribute that I don't actually know who's there or what's going on. So yes. So yes, I do apologize for that error, but I don't recall ever speaking to him.
Look, it's okay. It is. I mean, at the end of the day, it happened, and you said what you said, and I found it hilarious, and I get content out of it, so it's great. I'm just like, I'm trying to understand like where you're coming from with and give you a chance to tell people where you're coming from with this, because a lot of people were very angry, and a lot of people expressed that to me, and I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about it. Tell your side, why you did it, what you thought, what your thought process was. I think that's helpful. I think that's useful to do. So I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. Since you're here, who ran first, you or Sunday?
As I have said countless times, we both ran together, hand in hand, through a Bollywood film set, through the fields, dancing together, colourful, bright. And also, I will say he misspoke. I will not say that he lied, because I'm not malicious like that. I will say that he misspoke about the idea that I cancel on him every time, or that I just ignore him. I actually went through our DMs, and there were 4 occasions on which we had
DMs
arranged to talk. Oh, I would happily. Oh, he is free to leak them at his leisure. I'll let him do that.
Fair enough.
But there were 4 occasions where we had planned to talk. 2 of them, it was my fault. The first one, I double booked him with not so erudite, but I booked with her before, so I had to cancel on him and reschedule. The second time I was sick, and I was sick for about a month, and so I didn't respond to any DMs or anything, and so I apologized and we set something up later. the other two times were Sunday's cancellations. Firstly, something happened. I don't recall right now, but something happened. It was on him that he got the date wrong. I believe he got it wrong, and then he was speaking with Lav, I think. And then the other time, the latest time that we were meant to talk, he cancelled because he was sick. And so this idea that I sort of just cancel on him and ignore him is ludicrous, because it actually is a mutual fact of just life happening, and we just haven't had the time.
I think we have to. You know what? I don't advocate for leaking DMs, but if someone
they're really
wants
not that spicy. I don't know why.
leak
The thing
DMs
with
on
Sunday
this, I
is,
think that's what we mean. I might need. President Sunday has paid
but
me
the
more
thing
money.
with Sunday, can I just say, the thing with Sunday is that he's trying to make perfectly normal, everyday, nonchalant human interactions and human issues of like sickness, or just forgetting the date, or overbooking, or like overlapping with a booking with somebody, seem to be this like huge drama, which I think he's really like invested a lot of whatever energy he has left from his defaming of Not So Erudite on me for some reason. I mean, he thinks that I'm going through some kind of episode, that I'm being erratic or what have you. And he asks me, his last message annoyed me a little bit. I didn't respond to it because he said, engage with me like a person, even though the message before was me apologizing to him if I'd made him feel uncomfortable or uneasy for what I said in the tweet. And it's like he's trying to create some kind of drama, or some kind of, I don't know, like a scapegoat or enemy out of whatever sort of image him and I guess Demon Mama and all of them have sort of like created around.
Well, President Sunday
myself,
says
so
for 100
interesting.
bits, President Sunday says, I asked to reschedule and told Andrew I was even willing to talk that night. Kid canceled.
Oh yes. Oh well. About that, let's talk about that specifically.
He paid me 100 more before we go, just so I can get them both out there. Could Kidology elaborate which? Well, no, actually, we're not talking about that on my stream. I'm sorry, President Sunday, we're not going to address the erudite stuff on my streams.
Yes, yeah, I'm not talking about that. Yes.
But yes, answer the first one though.
Yes, right. As I said, we ran hand in hand because I didn't cancel. If you go back to my tweet, I specifically say that I am just not going to talk about the Not So Erudite situation because Tyler had asked me not to. And I decided that my friendship was more important and that I was not going to. It was my decision. I could have if I'd wanted to, but I didn't want to, because my friendship is a lot more important, and always the personal is always more important than the political in my books of things. It was a thread that I did of just 2 tweets. In the second thread, I said, I'm perfectly happy to go on stream, just not to speak about that. Like, I'm game for a debate. So I didn't cancel the debate. I merely said, after the fact in which Sunday had already done whatever he'd done with the Crucible fellow, I'm afraid I didn't know who he was either until I saw that tweet through 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝍍𝖔𝖜 stream, and then I realized that the Crucible is Andrew Wilson, and then I put 2 and 2 together, and then it like all made sense to me. But sorry, this isn't about my technological stupidity, but I didn't cancel the debate. I merely canceled. I didn't cancel appearing and talking to Sunday about something, about anything, because by that time we'd already had like a debate. He'd already gotten angry with me about everything I'd said about transgenderism and everything. So we'd have had fruitful conversation about a whole range of things that I know he absolutely despises me for.
Would you still have a debate with him on trans issues? President Sunday?
Of course, yes. As I said, I'm game. I would happily.
I want to set this up. I'm gonna steal this from Andrew because fuck that guy. I am absolutely willing to host you on that. We'll see. We'll talk about it. I don't want to commit anything right now. I do want to, because other people have some questions for you. Do you mind if we bring on some callers?
Yeah, sure. No problem at all.
Bring on some callers. Joe Brooks and then Beckett. Okay, we'll bring them on. You're live. Hello, you're muted on your end. Beautiful. Wonderful. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I think I must be out of sync or something. I'm just trying to. Oh, there I am.
We can hear you. What you got for us?
Oh, I am sorry. I've been watching on YouTube, so I just saw you pop up your live. I just dropped in the pit as soon as I logged on. I didn't really think about it. So, anyway, I was just going to say, I think the thing the thing with Twitter is no one understands tone at all. Like, if you were to say that stuff, maybe even on a stream or joking with a few people, I think it would have been taken very differently. I think because it's Twitter, it's really easy to just quote tweet that stuff, stick it up somewhere, and then you can apply whatever context you want. So if they say, like, oh, this is creepy, she's obviously desperate, that's how the people who follow that person are going to read it. And sorry, that's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, I should have taken it to 4chan, I guess. I
don't know. I mean, those. I think at least with those communities, you're always anonymous.
So are you team Kidology here then?
I guess I am team Kidology here. I actually have my agreements with you on the voting issue, but I guess I dropped in to talk about this stuff. No, I just think Twitter is very bad for that kind of sort of humor. You almost need to have a gigantic base to back you up and explain exactly what they think your point was. Because I just made a tweet today actually regarding voting, and someone took it the complete wrong way. Like, I thought it was very obvious. Nope, they thought I was saying something the complete opposite. But yeah, that's Twitter.
Right.
That's Twitter for you.
Do you have any questions for either me or Kidology today that you'd like to ask?
I would ask Kidology whether she's considered Brexit when she talks about voting being pointless, because I thought that was a pretty clear example of voting actually having quite a big effect.
Yes, I never said voting was pointless. I do vote. I just think that the system that we have, and I think Brexit is a perfect example of that, where even when a small majority wins, it can completely transform the system. And now if you look at public opinion, everybody is very much against Brexit and is feeling a lot of remorse for it. And things are not looking good on that front. And so I think that that's a perfect example of sort of the problem with our current system of voting, especially in the UK. I don't think it's pointless, but I think under the kind of system that we have, the first past the post, it is incredibly demoralizing and incredibly ineffective at actually doing good politics. I think what is created is just two of the same parties who are just... It's sort of like voting for the lesser of two evils, essentially, and sort of like quite literally. There is really no hope in the current Conservative Party. I think only hope really is, I thought it was Boris, because he actually has the guts to kind of shake up the Conservative Party. Unfortunately, I mean, if he starts his own party, that could be very interesting. And I think that would be a very good
Boris
strategic
Johnson,
move for
to
him.
be clear? For us Americans?
Yes, sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm British.
Full British.
Tangent.
I don't know if we... Look.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Joe, I don't know you, but I don't know if we can handle so much British on the same time. I'm not sure. I don't know if the stream can handle it. Like, I'm feeling very 1776-y right now. That's all I'm saying. There's tea that needs to be thrown in the river, right? I don't... Look. Anyway, but okay.
I apologize.
No,
but
fine.
yes, I don't think voting's pointless. I just think that it needs... It's stale and it needs a shake-up. And I think that obviously change is very scary and it's very long and it's a gamble. But I think it's very important for the good of
Brexit,
politics.
it wasn't that long. It was quite quick.
Sorry?
I said, well, with Brexit, it wasn't that long. We got something changed quite quickly, considering how terrible it was. But I can't say
Really? No,
Oh,
not
you?
really. I mean, we've actually seen a record number of immigrants. I mean, over 600,000, more than before Brexit
Oh,
now.
well, I
And
guess.
I mean, that's public opinion has also, even though public opinion, in fact, people are more pro-immigrants now, even though there's more immigrants than ever before in the last like 20, 30 years. Which is hilarious, and I think it's just testament to the issues with the current voting system and problems of the electorate as well. But different conversation, different stream.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just
Joe?
saying the pound value has dropped a lot. Okay, thank you, guys.
Joe, thank you for coming here. But
Thank
as
you, Joe.
all happens,
See ya.
threw him in the harbor like the tea, right? He to the void.
Oh
man, to the
no!
void.
Oh, I'll save you, Joe.
Joe seemed like a very pleasant individual. Very pleasant individual.
I will defend Joe to the death.
Okay.
Actually, that's what I was doing in DMs with Soul Bunny. Soul Bunny was insulting my audience, and I got very angry.
In DM? So you and Soul Bunny have been DMing?
Oh, we did. Yes.
I'm very curious. And she insulted your audience? What did she say about your audience?
Oh, well, we had a misunderstanding, I think. Completely just a misunderstanding, a very human thing, right? I thought that Soul Bunny said in our public back and forth that she wanted to, that she was happy to speak to me. And I thought that meant, oh, okay, great. Soul Bunny wants to be on my live stream and she wants to talk to me. That's great. What Soul Bunny actually meant, which I found out when I sort of asked because I didn't get in clarity, that she wanted to speak to me in private. And basically, as correspondence, from my perspective, it's just been very, very hostile, quite mean. And she made this sort of comment that came across, at least to me, as quite snide, just saying that she's not going to be made a spectacle of in front of my audience. And I said, whoa. My audience is amazing. They would never, and it's not our thing to make a spectacle of anybody. So that would not happen. But I do understand. You do what you want to do. But yes, that was one time when I was a bit
juicy tea. Thank you for sharing. Let's bring in the next caller.
Don't insult my people.
Exactly. Don't mess with my community either. Speaking of your people, we have another Brit blogger in here. If he Beckett will deign or Dane. I think it's Dane to undeafen. Okay. What up? You got a camera for us, brother?
Yeah, give me 1 second. 1 second.
Very British.
Yeah, too much Brit. I don't. Do no Americans watch me? Is it just British people now? Is that what I'm cursed with? I don't understand.
It's not so much that you're cursed with us. It's just that your content is a bit too, slow moving for an American audience. There's only so much you can.
Probably
you can
unironically true. Probably.
Hey, it's been ages. I haven't. It's good to see you again. As everyone knows, you're my favorite homely streamer. So
he's referencing me, Kidology.
Sorry.
About you. Okay, but go on.
Yeah, no, it's been a little while. I thought I'd come in and say hello. Okay, so full disclosure, I was going to do bartending review videos tonight, and then Vigilante came into my chat and was like, what do you think about the Kidology stuff? And I was like, nothing, because it has been a busy week. And I've just watched your Oxfam videos, and I have thoughts. I haven't watched all of it. I'm 15 minutes in. Most of that time has been shitting on white women. I'm not going to lie to you. That has been the vast majority of my content this evening. But yeah, so I have thoughts. So firstly, just from like the way you use the term TERF, I don't think that's really accurate to the way online discourse pushes the term TERF. Generally speaking, when anybody uses that phrase, it very specifically means people who deny that trans women are women at all. this kind of this revisionist discourse of it's women who challenge the biological sex thing and they accept trans women as trans women. I think that is insanely fucking niche, and I think it's quite revisionist, as there seems to be this reclaiming of the term as we enter this weird radfem arc. And I just don't think that's accurate. I got to ask though, why is this the hill that you're deciding to fight on?
I wouldn't say that this is a hill that I'm fighting on. I'm on many a hill. This was just one issue, mainly because it's topical, and just as a YouTuber, I do tend to cover topical things. I mean, a few weeks ago, I was all about surrogacy and about sort of geriatric dads. I'm interested in modern life and modern society, and I think that this is, at least at the moment, is a very dominant conversation that everybody is having. So yes, I wouldn't say that this is a hill I'm dying on, but I do think that I do have an issue with. I have an issue in myself when I sort of feel like I can't express an opinion about something when I'm doing it respectfully, or when I do it with the motive to engage with the other side. And I have felt that very unusually with regards to the trans question, that I can't. I'm told by a lot of people, just don't say anything. Just don't talk. Just don't express an opinion on this. And that's quite frightening to me. That it's deemed better to say silent about something than to actually say what you actually think and actually believe about something, even when your intentions are not malicious or insidious. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's the hill that I'm dying on, but
I mean,
it's a hill that I'm interested in climbing.
See, it's an interesting experience watching this sort of weirdly repeat, because a lot of the responses to kind of, we'll say, I don't want to use the term gender critical because it's very loaded. Even let's just say talking about the trans question, which is still loaded, but I can't think of a better one. It's been a long day. A lot of those responses are the same responses that those of us who were fairly anti-feminist in the early 2010s got for talking about feminism. And a lot of the rhetoric from the people sort of talking critically about gender and how we're approaching it now are using and rehashing exactly the same arguments that we used to attack feminism, in the way of talking about spaces and everything else. So it's quite a weird one. And even content like the one you've just produced has an awful lot of similarities to video essays from that period. So it feels like a repeat. And I think that's partly why I can see people kind of almost having like an instant reaction to those of us who remember that period of what it was like. But also, I can understand it feels tense because I've been almost on the other side of that position when debating feminism at all. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say you're going to get backlash for this, and it's going to make it feels like it's making you want to make content quite quickly. One of the things I said about the Oxfam video is I think I can be critical of Oxfam as well as another English person. There's loads of shit to it. But also in the video, it feels like you're combining criticisms of Oxfam with essentially the criticisms of what Stonewall has been doing. Because Stonewall very much has been accused of doing what you're describing, and has lost contracts over it. But Oxfam is sort of just doing rainbow capitalism. And Oxfam absolutely is corpo, and absolutely has issues. But is it any more than any other company that's just trying to buy into rainbow capitalism and make a product and make profit, basically?
No, but I think that there's an important factor and something very unique about Oxfam, which is that their ad was, it was just ironic that they were sort of pointing the finger at TERFs, specifically J.K. Rowling, as represented in that animation, as being the root of ultimately the demise of marginalized groups, of ignoring and pushing to the margins trans individuals, when they have literally been doing that for the past 10, almost 20 years in other countries, and trying to cover it up. And I think that was for me, that was what made me incredibly angry, because they were essentially blaming, like I think is very much sort of the zeitgeist right now, blaming white women and white feminists for everything that is going wrong in our modern sort of pop cultural world. If anything goes wrong, it's always a Karen, or it's a J.K. Rowling, or a white feminist, or what have you. And I think that this just creates an enemy where there really is none at all, viably. I mean, it's just, in my opinion, it's just blatant racism disguised as some kind of progressive narrative. But I think that is just incredibly, just rather disgusting for a company that is a charity to be allegedly on the side of individuals who actually do need charities and organizations and people to be on their side. The LGBTQ plus community, specifically the T aspect of that. And a company who has in absolutely no way done that for the people who it was meant to do that for, in its own charity, in its own works, in its own ethics, preaching a kind of ethics and sort of just passing the buck of responsibility for things that has been at the root of onto white TERFs. I thought that was ultimately what I was trying to say and get across. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. Like, I can see that thing of like passing the buck on. I would say, listen, as somebody who's watched this sort of stuff evolve for a long time online, and especially the feminism debate and things, I kind of get it. Ironically, it's one of those things that a lot of us who were around at the time were just like, it's going to turn on feminist if they keep pushing this. And now a lot of the people who sort of lead the gender critical movement in the UK are ex-Guardian journalists,
Yes.
ex-Left Wing journalists, because they pushed feminism majorly, and the very arguments that are used against them now are the ones that they pushed years ago. That is a very large moth. Sorry. So it's sorry, completely distracted.
Oh, no, very British thing.
Yeah, no. But it's, you know, I can see why people get concerned when you're saying certain things, and your Twitter behavior, I think is funny personally. I will say this. I think when Mindwaves of all fucking people being like, stop being creepy online when he's like sat there having conversations about pegging and shit, is just like, come the fuck on. I think it is overblown moralizing, but you can see why, you know, people are going to have that reaction to you on Twitter when I think you come across as quite sensible.
Beckett, maybe you didn't see the earlier part of the stream, but I had to explain what Coomer meant to Kidology, and I don't know, like, if she understands. Like, I don't mean to like infantilize you, Kidology, but I think that like one of the
please God,
issues...
I will give you subs. Allow me to be the person to explain what pegging is to Kidology.
Yeah, I don't know who Mindwaves is, and I don't know what pegging is. So
okay, 10 gift subs in Twitch chat, gang, and we will explain this. 10 gift subs in in Twitch chat,
this is
and Beckett will explain pegging to Kidology live on my stream. Can we get those subs? Can we make this content happen? Don't Google it. No, that's cheating. Okay, no Googling it. If we could also get maybe I don't know, $25 in a super chat or something. That's on YouTube, that's the equivalent thing. I don't think
today's a good day.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Look, but
But-
my point is, before you explain, my point is, I
Sure.
think that what we're running into here is someone who's very new to the internet, who doesn't understand the culture and doesn't understand the etiquette, the netiquette, if you want. We got 1 sub for pegging. Can we get 9 more for pegging? 9 more in chat for pegging, and we can get this done.
Because Beckett, you sound like a real internet
He knows,
historian.
if anyone knows what pegging
this is incredible.
yeah.
I remember we were on a panel. I remember you now,
Yeah.
because I remember you knew so much about the law and just everything of the internet. You're going to write
I wrote my
a
I wrote my
book.
master's dissertation on the alt-right online spaces, and I've been around a very long time.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Excellent.
none of this is impressive. None of it's useful. It basically means that I can make bullshit on arguments and be like, I remember back in my day. I do. Okay, actually, no. Quickly, while we do this, I do have one other criticism for you, because I think this is a good one to get out. This is just a general thing. In your video, you're like, oh, Gen Z's hard to sell to. God, that moth. Right, Gen Z's hard to sell to. It's hard to get us engaged. But these are the same things every generation has said. Like Gen X was like, we're all punks and it's MTV. For the millennials, it was like, listen, we like food and avocado toast. How are you going to sell? How are you going to sell your corporate stuff to us, man? It's just a general thing. And I think Gen Z now is a bit of a weird one where lots of it's online, but they're still selling products, and pride is part of that. But ultimately, you only have to look at the fact that the way TikTok works and the way ads have become.
Yes.
I saw an advert today which started off with someone putting a firecracker in a cheeseburger, giving it to their boss, and it turned into a phone protector advert. And I watched the whole fucking thing. It was real effective. So, you can see companies moving towards that shit.
Yes.
But yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with you on that exactly. I think there is something about Gen Z in that, relative to millennials and Gen X, etc. Gen Z doesn't have, at least according to the data that I've read, Gen Z has virtually no money, but has incredibly expensive taste. And that expensive taste is not sort of your conventional expensive like Chanel and Louis Vuitton, but expensive in the way of sustainability and sustainable fashion, sustainable things. All that moth.
It's fine. He's having fun. He's enjoying the conversation. He's engaged. This is brilliant. Brilliant moth-based content.
And so companies can't just market luxury ultimately to Gen Z, or can't just sort of up their prices. They have to somehow navigate a very poor demographic that has expensive taste and is willing to spend money that they don't have, and somehow keep that going whilst keeping themselves open on the high street. And I think that's quite exceptional, and that's very much something that a lot of companies are trying to, at least now, because all of this data, all these consultants, I don't know what happened at the end of last year, but they all sort of produced all their data on this. And sort of since then, there's been sort of these companies trying these different things, like with Bud Light, Nike, all these companies trying to sort of tap in on.
I mean, it's been going for a while. I mean, we've got the
but a lot more sort of head on this year,
Sure.
Definitely, a lot more sort of emphasis on it. And I don't think it's woke or anything sort of all that alt-right is saying. I think it is literally just them trying to attract this demographic who are coming of age, and doing it just sort of diving into the deep end, essentially. I don't think it has got nothing to do with actual politics. I think it's more to do with trying to sell morality, which is everything that Gen Z is about, morals and sanctimony. And that sells, because Gen Z does see corporations as having a soul.
I will say this. So, we are living in a very puritanical generation, in a lot of ways. I agree with that. This is something I've heard before, something I will agree with, that yes, we are living in a very puritanical kind of mindset. It's a mix of hedonism and puritanism of thought, hedonism of behavior. And it's a problem. I absolutely agree with you. You know what else is a problem, gang? The fact that you guys can't give me more subs, so Beckett can't give the pegging thing. Sorry, Beckett. You said you would pay, but you just
Fuck.
didn't. They just didn't. They just didn't pay. So that sucks.
I think people are just trying to protect Kidology's innocence.
Online.
I'm so curious. I need to know what this is.
Oh. We'll okay.
Can I ask one last question?
One last question, because we do have a I do have to eat, and I want to get one more person.
Yeah, sure. I know you've got a list. Just quickly, I know you've pushed this whole femcel thing, and I know that you are looking for some sort of partnership. And I just want to ask, have you considered answering your DMs and messages with people as potentially a way to make that process easier? Because you are incredibly fucking hard to get a hold of through like any medium.
Yes, I do know that. I do invest sort of the searching for a potential partner in the real world. I'm afraid. I don't know. Apparently you can DM on Instagram, all of that. I do not know how that works. I haven't yet ventured into Instagram because I'm just getting a hang of Twitter.
I'm not here to give any massive advice or anything. I think just make sure you're answering your messages and don't accidentally ghost anyone. Thank you for having me on. It's fun to see.
Wait, no, pegging.
Oh, pegging.
Okay, no, Beckett, we did not get the money for Beckett to explain to you, so I get to explain to you. Okay, so you get to know what
that was about to make us nice.
I know, but we like to destroy Beckett. That's funny. It's been a while.
I wanted the good-looking Ed Sheeran to explain pegging to me. So
the good-looking Ed Sheeran,
Yes.
Ed Sheeran.
I'm sorry, I didn't listen to his music, so I just go on what I read.
Fair enough. No, that's probably based. Okay, so before we bring in the next contestant on this, whatever this is now, what pegging is when a woman a woman uses a strap-on to fuck the guy in the butt. That is what pegging is. They get pegged. So there you go. Now you know. The thing.
And somebody who tweeted me is a pegger.
It's a peg. I think he's a peggy. No, I'm not sure if I don't know if 𝕾𝖍𝖎 is a peggy or a pegger. I know that at least according to Beckett, he was tweeting about it. So yes.
Oh.
And then the thing was he tweets about that on main, but then gets to call you creepy for your Coomer tweet. So that was the issue at hand. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. Okay. We'll bring on Origin. Okay, Origin, what's up? You're live. You're live.
Hey, I just have one thing to say really quick. Kidology, just keep doing what you're doing. I think the way that you go about tackling issues is actually fine. And I would honestly not take into consideration the legion of like people who just complain about what you do because they have a presupposition that they think you should say one thing or another. So yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to say. Maybe we should talk about philosophy at some point, because I loved how you mentioned Hannah Arendt earlier. That's one of the philosophers I really dig.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, yes, I'd love to at some point. Definitely. If you just send me a DM on Twitter, I will see that. So then we can arrange. But thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And also, Wick should also do some more philosophy panels. I know he prefers the drama, but that's Wick for you.
What do you mean I prefer the drama? I don't like philosophy and I don't like drama. I don't like either. I think philosophy is just drama in a different form, right?
Whatever, Wick. But anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay, Origin. Bye-bye.
So long, Origin.
Auf Wiedersehen, as they say. Do we want to bring in Sunday? Sunday, I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if you trust you to bring not to bring up the 𝕾𝖎𝖙 stuff. We're not absolutely.
I don't trust him. No.
You don't want him?
I don't trust him.
Okay.
I will happily speak to Sunday with you moderating at a different point.
At a different day.
I doubt that there's going to be anything
Okay.
terribly constructive right now, except him trying to. I don't know why this is such a big deal about who cancelled first, and I don't know why it's such a big deal that I said that. We both just ran together.
We'll talk about it in another day. For now, though,
I do adore you, Sunday. Don't forget that. In your own way.
Thank you for the other gift sub, Ice Beans. Gang, no, I'm not gonna look. She says she doesn't want to talk to Sunday now. We're gonna respect our guests.
Oh wait, do the guests want Sunday?
Ice Beans wants lots of things. $50 for Fire Child. Philosophy is drama in another form. LMFAO, bring in Sunday. Oh, they're paying for it, but I don't know if I can, gang. I don't know if I can. I don't think it's a good idea. Damn.
I don't think it's a good idea, but I will respect your decision because this is your show. This is your money. And so
I know. I have a coin somewhere. No, seriously, we're gonna flip it. We're gonna flip it. We're gonna flip it. Okay. Coin. Heads, we bring them in. Tails, we don't. Oh no.
Oh dear.
Tails, gang. Sorry. Okay, with that, we have to tell you what. I will raid into someone, and if Kidology wants to go into Sunday's stream, feel free. I'll redirect into Sunday. How's that, gang? And we'll do that. And if she wants to go there to talk, she may. But for now, I do have to respect my guests' wishes. I know it's money though. It's money. But for now, we're gonna raid out. Let's raid out first on Twitch. Who's streaming? We have 𝕵𝖎𝖙 You guys want to say 𝕵𝖎𝖙 Yeah, he was nice enough to tune in. Let's go say hi to him. Do you want to tell people what you got coming up real quick?
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, I've just been moving a lot. Well, I've got quite a big video coming up not about sort of transgenderism, but one small aspect of transgenderism. It's quite a big video. I'm still editing it though, so it's going to take a little while. But otherwise, next week I have a video essay coming out. I also write on Substack, and I also got published this week in Unheard. So if you'd like to, yes, I was very excited. Yes, so. Yes, if you'd like to read that, a little debate about weight loss injections, then feel free to give me a read. Yes. So, yes, I'm just trying to sort of settle in, figure things out. But otherwise, wait, I do have something going on next week. I think do I have a debate with somebody?
But I'll say this.
I'm so sorry. Anyway,
while you remember, gang. We've criticized and crucified Kidology today. But at the end of the day, we stand Kidology because you know what? She is willing to come on. She's willing to have this discourse. She's willing to talk to us. She's willing to, have the conversations. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a great thing. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to come on, to hear some of my criticisms, and to engage with me on it. And I still love you. I still think you're great.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
For now,
thank you. You crucified me, but I rose again on the third day.
Apparently, if you want to talk to President Sunday on Beckett's stream, you may. So that's up to you. I'm washing my hands of it, gang. I've communicated. Thank you for the money. Thank you for the donations. But if someone says
I'll just
no,
apologize and say
no means no, gang. No means no. Okay. So.
I am sorry, everybody. It is like nearly 1:30 in the morning here, and I have been up since 6 a.m. yesterday. So I'm going to go to bed because I'm running on low fuel. But yes, we'll arrange with Sunday. But thank you for having me as always. Thank you.
Scouts.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.